So hello, everybody. Welcome to this video. And in this video, we're going to be talking a little bit more about why am I feeling stuck and how do I get unstuck? So recently I was talking to somebody, a close friend of mine, and they were mentioning to me how they feel very, very stuck, specifically around a certain person, because this certain person betrayed their trust and almost in a way they created a new version of themselves in response to the betrayal that happened. And even more so, this person expressed to me they have fear around raising their family and their kids around an environment where people exist out in the world that could betray them like this. So I was working with this person and they were asking me like, well, what do I do? Because I'm just constantly living in a state of fear, feeling powerless. I'm feeling hopeless. I'm constantly in a state of confusion every time I'm near this person who betrayed my trust, who hurt me in a public way. How do I get out of this? How do I take my power back? And it's not so simple, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the principles behind it and why you feel stuck and how you get unstuck. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the principles behind what's happening here. So we all have people in our lives that we look up to. Maybe it's our parents, maybe it's a loved one, maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a leader, maybe it's somebody in our life who guided us during a certain part of our journey. Now, whoever that person is, at some point in your life, you will eventually come to a point of realizing that they're human too, that they mess up too, that they're not all perfect as you may have thought. So in some instances, you might realize that when you meet them, they hold themselves a certain way, they behave a certain way, they act and express themselves a certain way, they communicate in a certain way. But behind closed doors, maybe they do things that don't quite live up to the values, to the expectations that you held. So for my friend, he's a part of a community, and a certain person in that community betrayed his trust and also hurt him in a public way. And because of that, he has this reconciling moment where he realizes he has a shattered ideal. This person he once looked up to betrayed him. He has a shattered ideal, a shattered expectation, a shattered vision, a shattered dream, if you will. He thought that this person he looked up to, that he trusted, would behave a certain way, could be trusted, would be honorable, would have virtue. And yet, my friend now feels a state of fear, a state of trepidation, a sense of sorrow, a bit of powerlessness, hopelessness, and even confusion. And even so much to the point that when he's thinking about his family, how he's going to go forward, it is affecting him. Do I want to be connected to this, or do I want to leave? Now, one principle that we want to really keep in mind is that humans are meaning-making machines. Now, this comes from neuro-linguistic programming. Now, neuro-linguistic programming was a framework that was created in the 80s by a man named Richard Bandler and I believe Dr. Grindler. And they worked together and they modeled some of the top leaders and experts in various fields. And they found certain things about these leaders and why they were so effective, why they were so gifted at public speaking, persuasion, why they were so gifted in influence, why they would have such a wonderful following. And they took what they knew and they used it to help people make changes very, very rapidly. Because the thing is, a lot of times people believe that change takes a long time, that change takes a lot of effort. You have to suffer through and suffer through and suffer through in order to have deep, lasting change. And now we know that's just not true. Change can happen in an instant, it can be permanent. You don't have to hold on to struggles, traumas, abuses, limiting beliefs. You don't have to hold on to that forever. You can actually change those quite rapidly. And this is like one of the ideas in neurolinguistic programming, is that humans are meaning making machines. So what do I mean by that? So you're going through life, something happens, then you make it mean something, and then you live through life as if it's the truth. So here's an example of one that I went through. So I remember when I was growing up, my parents would always tell me, don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to strangers. You don't know what they're up to. Don't talk to strangers. So when I was growing up, I would always look at strangers, and maybe they were friendly. Maybe they would see a little cute little kid and just wave at me. And I would just be very timid and shy and kind of like hesitant to go talk. And then people labeled me as shy growing up. But that belief that you never know, don't talk to strangers. You never know if somebody might kidnap you. You never know what might happen. So I lived through life, a good portion of my early childhood, as if that belief was true. Something happened. I made it mean something. The world's not safe. The people can be scary. So I have to protect myself. And then I lived through life as if that belief was true. These are the battle scars that we wear, right? So for some people, it might be a trauma. For some people, somebody may have yelled at them. Somebody may have hurt them. Somebody may have humiliated them. We are meaning-making machines. We come out of an experience with a meaning to life. Life is scary. People cannot be trusted. Don't get your hopes up because somebody will let you down. Or I'm a disappointment. Or I'm going to let somebody down. I'm not loyal. I'm not lovable. I'm not this. I'm not smart. I'm not beautiful. I'm just ugly, right? All these meanings that we just kind of come up with from little experiences. Maybe this one's more relatable. Maybe you were in school as a young kid, and then somebody asked you a question, or some teacher asked a question, and then you raised your hand immediately. And then you raise your hand immediately, and the teacher calls on you, and then you blurt out an answer. And maybe you said Thomas Jefferson, and then the whole class just starts laughing. And they were like, no, actually, the first president of the United States was George Washington. And then you feel embarrassed. And because you had your hand raised, you now make a meaning up in your mind that don't volunteer for things. It's not safe. You could be ridiculed. You don't want to feel that anymore. And so then anytime there's an opportunity to go public speaking and you think about that moment of, maybe volunteering, that nervous energy comes up. Maybe those sensations come up. Maybe your face goes flush and you just can't do it anymore. So this is what we mean by we are meaning-making machines. Now, apply this in any area of life. It all makes sense, right? Relationships. You're out there with your loved one, your first love, and you are expressing your love so much, and then there's a breakup. And your capacity to love was probably out to here. And after that first breakup, maybe your capacity to love goes down. Then maybe you have your second breakup, and then it goes down some more. And then your third breakup, and then it goes down some more. And then your fourth breakup, and it goes down some more. And then by the time you're ready to jump into that next relationship, and they're just looking for somebody to love them, your capacity is only up to here because you may have gone through so much and you've come out with so many conclusions, so many meanings, so many beliefs that have limited your ability, your capacity to love. This also applies with finances, right? if you have ever been through a financial trauma, such as, a firing or, a layoff, or having to go through a financial hurdle, or maybe you were on welfare, maybe you went bankrupt, and having to recover from that. The meanings you walk away from things may hinder your ability to make money, to see abundance with money, to see opportunities, to have a belief that making money is easy. Maybe it hinders your ability to believe that. Maybe you believe that time is money and that I need to trade all of my time in order to make more money. And business and investing is completely something different. It doesn't work for you. Maybe you have beliefs like that. So you're now starting to see how humans are meaning-making machines. Now, I shared with you about my friend and how he had this shattered ideal, shattered expectation. So a lot of times when we deal with certain people in our lives, there's this idea that they are archetypes for us. They're archetypes for us. Maybe this person is a leader. Maybe this person's a mentor. Maybe this person is the peacemaker. Maybe this person is a manipulator. Maybe this person is a loyal person. Maybe this person is the not dependable person. Maybe this person is a forever victim. Can't quite shake the victim mentality. Maybe this person is the energy vampire. Maybe this person is the social justice warrior, person with a cause that only shows up when there's a cause at hand, but never shows up when there's just regular family things. Whatever the case is, we all have archetypes that we deal with. And when you feel stuck, it's important to look at your environment around you. Who are the archetypes in my life that are showing up? Have I recognized this archetype in the past? Do I recognize this archetype in the past? If you're in a relationship where you constantly keep having the same type of battles, struggles, why does this look familiar? Have I dealt with this in the past? Maybe somebody's cheating, and you've had some sort of rejection, abandonment, sort of betrayal kind of patterns just keep on circling over and over and over. What are the archetypal similarities that you're noticing? What are the recurring themes that you're noticing? Maybe it's financial. Maybe somebody just betrays you, takes your money and leaves. Maybe it's health related. Maybe you're noticing some recurring themes about your diet, your exercise. Maybe it's familial. Maybe you have a family member who just never gave you that approval or that validation that you were desperately seeking as a child. And so you keep engaging in this very, very toxic kind of relationship with a family member without ever taking your power back, without ever standing up for yourself, without ever owning who you are, taking full responsibility for who you are, and stepping into your greatness. So what I encourage you to do is, if any of this resonates with you, take notes, journal on this, right? Journal on what were the shattered ideals I had growing up as a kid? What were the shattered ideals I had growing up as an adult? And if I'm a meaning-making machine, meaning I come up with conclusions and I live through life as if this is the truth, I live from this truth, and I live from these battle scars. What are the meanings I came up with? And also, who are the archetypes in my life? What are the archetypal themes in my life that keep happening? Am I always broke? Am I always even Steven? Am I always coming out ahead? Are other people always putting me down? Are other people always talking behind my back? Am I always getting triggered in this situation? What are the recurring themes that are happening, and who are the archetypes that are there? Now, if you have something there that you need to work on with an archetype or with a recurring theme, I really recommend forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big part of the equation. Forgiveness helps you. It's not just for the other person, right? So sometimes we think of forgiveness as, you might have heard the adage forgive and forget, right? But I don't think that's necessarily what we need to do. But forgiving is more of releasing the other person from any sort of judgment or payment that you want to inflict on them. See, your mind, if somebody's betrayed you, if somebody's hurt you, you may want to inflict payback. You may want to inflict, like, oh, I just really want to get that person so bad. They deserve this so bad. But what you don't realize is internally, you are holding on to something. You're holding on to a grudge, and it is in control. So anytime that person shows up, you are now disempowered. You do not have your full power. You instead are disempowered, and you are lowered in your emotional scale down to a state of rage, revenge. You're not operating from your prefrontal cortex. You're operating from your brainstem, actually, right? You're going more into that reptilian side of the brain, right? Which is more of rage, anger. You can't see clearly. So when you choose to forgive, you're actually not letting the person off the hook. You're not forgetting that some wrong was done to you, but you're actually giving the person grace. You're releasing the judgment within your mind. When you release it within your mind, now a meaning gets to shift. Now an archetype gets to shift. It doesn't mean that you just let people back into your life. It doesn't mean that you just let that person back into your life who betrayed you. It means you get to choose now what the story is going forward. Do I want to overcome this loss? Do I want to overcome this betrayal? Do I want to overcome this person who cheated on me? Do I want to overcome this person who stole from me? Do I want to overcome this person who slandered me? Do I want to overcome that situation? And if so, am I willing to release this person in my mind from all judgment, from all payback, from all wanting revenge, wanting to hurt, wanting to cause pain towards? Now, if you're still struggling with this, just consider for a moment. This was one of the things that my mentor told me, is that anytime you do not forgive, it is as if you are drinking poison and looking at the other person and wanting that person to die. Think about that for a second. Anytime you fail to forgive, it is like you are drinking poison, looking at the other person and expecting them to die. But what's actually happening is you are poisoning yourself, and now your ability, your capacity to love is limited compared to what once was. And this is why in relationships, it's important to forgive those people from the past. You don't have to date them again. You don't have to get into relationships with them again. Business partners, you don't need to get into relationships with them again. You can learn lessons. You can revoke access to you. You don't have to let people back into your inner circle. You can revoke access. You can put up healthy boundaries. It's totally fine. But what you want to do is you want to forgive for you. Because when you forgive for you, you are now stopping yourself from beating yourself up. Like, why didn't I see this pattern? Why didn't I know that this person was a manipulator? Why didn't I know this person was going to steal from me? Why didn't I know this person was going to cheat on me? I should have seen the signs. Forgiveness means you are letting yourself be free. You are releasing yourself from all the tragic thinking, from all the pain thinking, from all the harm that you want to inflict on yourself, all the self-blame. You're letting yourself go from that, right? And you are now releasing that person from your life. You're releasing that person. And if you want, you can, if you need to have that person in your life, you can operate with boundaries. If you don't want to have that person in your life, you can certainly revoke access. It's totally cool. I do it all the time. It's not a big deal. Now, if you're struggling with any of the meanings that came up, right, as you're journaling, maybe you came up with some ideas of, I made this mean that, or this is a meaning that I came up with. Now you can look at this idea that I talk about, where your mind is a juggler. So maybe you've never heard this concept before, but your mind, you have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And I like to tell people that your mind is a juggler. So your conscious mind can only do so many things at one time. And your subconscious mind has almost infinite resources. So your conscious mind, I believe, can process about 50 bits of information per second, whereas your subconscious mind can process about 400 million bits per second. It's an exponential leap. So when you think about all the things that your body does, such as inhaling and exhaling, you don't have conscious awareness of that, but your subconscious is taking care of that. Heat regulation, when to blink, how to speak, what words to use, how to enunciate, how to do certain things that you take for granted, such as driving, multitasking while you're driving. Maybe you're changing the music and you're driving, or maybe you're asking Siri for directions and you're driving and you're changing lanes. You're not putting conscious thought to all of it at the same time. You're actually unconsciously driving and doing a lot of the directions. So there's a scale which goes unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and then unconscious competence. So that means that sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And then eventually we know, hey, I don't know that thing, but now I'm aware. And then we get to a state of, I'm consciously learning it. So I know that I'm getting better. I know that I'm knowing this thing. And then we get to a stage where we are like the maestro. We are like an expert in the field. We are unconsciously competent. So I don't even know how I'm doing it. I'm just so good that it just keeps happening, and I'm an expert at it. That's unconscious competence. And that's the fourth stage. And we want to eventually get to that stage. But a lot of the times we have these limiting beliefs, right? We talked about shattered ideals. We talked about how we're meaning-making machines. We talked about archetypes. Now, you might have to let go of some of these beliefs. And you might think that, how do I do that? I've been living with these beliefs forever. Well, this is the cool thing, is your mind, your conscious mind, can only hold on to about 7 beliefs at a time, plus or minus 3. So it's more likely 4. This is why phone numbers are typically 7 numbers, because most people only remember the first 4, maybe 7. And if you're lucky, maybe 10. But you can only hold on to 4 beliefs at a time, typically, give or take. And if you ask the person enough questions, if you ask yourself enough questions, if you journal and ask yourself enough questions, you'll realize that, why do I believe this belief? Like maybe for somebody with some sort of anxiety, maybe they have some sort of anxiety around going out in public. Like, why do I believe it's not safe to go out into the world? Social anxiety. I used to have that back in my teenage years, and I had to overcome that. Why do I believe that the world out there is not safe? So if you have that belief, you might have to ask yourself, like, why do I really believe this belief? Oh, okay. So when I was younger, my parents told me, don't talk to strangers. Okay. And why did they tell me not to talk to strangers? Well, they told me that you could get kidnapped. Okay. So what other reasons do I have why not to talk to strangers? Well, there was that time in school where I raised my hand and I talked to a bunch of strangers in my class and I yelled out an answer and everybody laughed at me. Okay, so that's another reason. What else? Well, I think there's like those times where I was meeting people for the first time in school when I went to public school, and it was very awkward, and maybe it could be awkward and I just don't want to be in an awkward situation. Oh, okay. So there's about 4 reasons right there.
So then you'll get to a point where you start running out of reasons. Now, when you start journaling, just keep asking yourself the questions. Your subconscious mind knows all the answers. So you'll keep coming back to the same couple of answers. And you'll notice that at some point you run out of reasons. Your mind only collected so many, but it holds on to them like it's the truth. So write down what those reasons are. Then you can do the fun part. Your mind is a juggler. So when I said this, your mind is juggling all these reasons all at the same time, right? So maybe there's 4 balls in the air. Just imagine 4 balls are in the air. So what happens if you ask your subconscious mind, your conscious mind or your subconscious mind both, about an example where that wasn't necessarily so? It wasn't necessarily so. So what about that time when you had a birthday party and there was all these people gathered, and maybe there was people you knew and maybe there was people you didn't know, but people were nice to you? What about that time? Was it really scary at that time to talk to strangers? So now, while we're juggling all these beliefs that we're holding steady, a new ball gets introduced, and we start juggling that ball, which is basically telling us the opposite. It's a counterexample to social anxiety, right? It's a counterexample to why I can't be social. Yeah, I did have a birthday party, and yeah, I didn't know some people, and I did meet them, and they were really cool. Okay, well, what about a time when you went to a restaurant and the waitress came up to you, and the waitress was really nice. You didn't know the waitress, and the waitress took your order, and the waitress served you, and everything went fine. That's another ball getting introduced to the juggler, the juggling mind, and it starts thinking of that counterexample. And before you know it, you just keep throwing in examples after examples after examples. What about the time I met my guidance counselor and I didn't know them and they were really cool and they actually helped me with my future? What about that time when I went to the car mechanic and I didn't know them and I was kind of worried, like, are they gonna just like blow up my car, or are they gonna charge me out the wazoo? And lo and behold, we became friends. What about that time? Or what about the time I became really cool friends with my car dealer, or the part when I found this really cool restaurant and I became friends with the owners? What about those times? And before you know it, if you just keep throwing enough counter examples in, your mind is still juggling all these balls, but the old balls telling you the limitation, the old balls holding on to those archetypes, the old balls holding on to those shattered ideals, they eventually get dropped. And then all that remains is your mind starts to juggle just the balls that are filled with positivity. So this is a great way to get unstuck. This is a great way to break those patterns that have been holding you back. Now, I hope this video has been helpful for you. I will see you again in the next one.